alongside the early math team, Sonia, Rusty, and Jess. I'm going to get us started today, and I'm sure the rest of the team will be unmuting their mic and sharing some ideas. We also have Dr. Allison Fox-Resnick here with us. She's in Colorado today. We're so glad that she's here. Doing some time zone math makes me think that it's really, really, really early for you in this moment, especially with that time change. On the screen, and I'm sure in chat, is our reflection routine. We're going to take a few moments to share how things are going in your context. Think about the last month. What are some things that you've tried? What are some things that you would like us to know about? Any celebrations that you'd like to share? Our team utilizes this information alongside our research team to think about next steps for this group. And other groups. So please take a moment to share the feedback, if you will. For those of you just joining us, on the screen, you'll see an opportunity to do a reflection. Let us know how things are going in your context, and think about the last month as you do so. You'll also notice that breakout rooms have popped up. Part of our purpose of coming together each month is to network and collaborate with one another, learn from and with each other. So when you're ready and you've hit submit on your form, you can jump into a breakout room and say hello to some friends from across the state. Introduce yourselves and let them know a celebration about your work in your context. We'll populate into groups of, let's say, no more than 4 in a breakout. Again, welcome. So nice to see so many of you here this morning. When you're done filling out the reflection form that shares how things are going over the last month, feel free to jump into a breakout room, say hello, let people know where you're from and what you've been up to. We'll take just another couple of minutes to finish the survey. If you haven't finished yet, please go ahead and do so. And we welcome you. Feel free to join a breakout room and say hello to some friends and let them know how things are going in your context once you're done. Or if you feel more comfortable here, stay here. Team, how are we doing on survey numbers? Does someone have that open?
Yes, we are at about 48. Some quick math there. Plus or minus 2.
Pretty close to having everybody complete.
Yeah, we're getting closer. They're still coming in too.
Good.
Trish, they'll have 30 seconds when I close the rooms at 9:10. And it's
Thanks.
9:10 now, so I'm going to go ahead and hit close.
Thank you. What information? Welcome back. We appreciate you taking the time to complete the survey and taking the opportunity to jump into a breakout and talk and network with some new friends. Our purpose of our time together is to learn alongside one another, to network, and of course, to collaborate. We know that we can do better for the children in our state, and that's why we're all here together to puzzle through some ideas and to continue to think alongside one another. So thank you for choosing to be here. We know you have a lot of other places you could have been, and you chose to sign on. So we really appreciate you spending time with us. As we work together each month over the year, we're going to be thinking about these 4 buckets. In today's learning context, we're going to be doing a little bit of math. We're going to get started with that, and we'll make some connections to goals for teacher instruction. We're going to consider the complexity of teacher learning today, and then also consider ways that we craft coherence. We started speaking a bit to coherence last month, but we're going to continue to think about crafting coherence in our current systems as we work. Our agenda is on the screen. And we're going to jump into instructional goals here. Oops. Please know that, as we're working together, if you have questions that you want to add in chat a hope, a need, please go ahead and do so. You can message any of the four of us that are hosting the event privately in chat, or just put a message in chat and we'll respond quickly. That'll be our parking lot. As we get started, I want you to think about the word algebra. When you hear this word, what other words come to mind? Maybe you'll share a thought or a feeling. And I'd love for us just to populate some ideas in chat. Find your chat button. What comes to mind when you hear the word algebra? Add some ideas. After you've added your idea, go ahead and read a few others. Someone named their actual teacher, Mr. Piatter. Some are naming equations. Some are saying it's hard. Some see it as puzzles. Oh goodness, someone named tears. Moving symbols, struggles. Lori, I'm with you. I loved algebra. One person says gross.
This is funny what people put for.
Developmental readiness. Another teacher name. Yeah, we've got lots of different, oh, I see the word anxiety. We have a lot of different ideas that come to mind when we're thinking about algebra. Please stay on the call if you're one that's getting anxious. I'm gonna make a loose connection to algebra, but we're gonna really think through a problem today that's similar to the one that Rusty shared last month, where he had some dots on the screen and you just simply told how many. Today, we're gonna see a similar image, but it's going to be a regular image. And we're going to think about how many again, but we'll be able to tie that idea to algebra as well. So on the next screen, you're going to see a figure, and the prompt that I'm going to ask you to do is, without counting one by one, I'm going to ask you to figure out how many squares are on the border of the image. Here's the image. This image happens to be a 10 by 10 square. And we're thinking about just the squares that are on the outside, those orange squares. So I want you to think to yourself, oops, how would you figure out how many squares are on that border? And once you've figured out how many, you can put that number in chat. Nice. We have a couple of answers in the chat. I see 36 and 40 coming up, and I saw one person at least change their mind. And a few even gave some strategies on how they found out how many. So let's talk about what you're actually seeing and how you figured out exactly how many. Just give me 1 second to get to a different screen. Would someone be willing to share by unmuting their microphone how they figured out how many orange squares were on the border of the square?
I will.
Thank you.
Yep, I did, I knew there was 10 across the top because you said it was 10 by 10, so I didn't even bother counting. So I knew if there's 10 across the top, there's 10 across the bottom. So I did 10 plus 10. And then I already used the top and bottom on each of the sides. So I knew in my head that 10 minus 2 is 8. So I knew there's 8 on the left side, 8 on the right side. So I just did 10 plus 10 and 8 plus 8. and I put friendly numbers together. So 10 and 10 is 20 and 8 and 8 is 16. And then I added 20 plus 16 and got 36.
Okay, Terry, thank you so much for that thorough explanation. I'm just gonna break it down a little bit here. So you said you started with 10 on the top and 10 on the bottom,
Yep.
right? A lot of us,
Mm.
you can give a me too if that's where you also started. Terry, you said though that you saw 8 on each side. Can you talk a little bit about where those 8 came from? Because you said there's 10 here and 10.
Well, I knew there was going to be 10 on the sides too because it was a square, but I already
Okay.
counted the top one and the bottom one, and I knew 10 minus 2 is 8. So that left me with 8 uncounted blocks on each side.
Okay, I see
So
what
I-
you're saying. So you said that there was 10 on the right side and 10 on the left side,
Right.
but you needed to subtract this top and the bottom, those squares.
Yep, because I already used it.
Gotcha.
Mhm.
So you then had 2 10s
Yep.
and then
2 8s.
2 8s or 2 10 minus 2s, right?
Yep, yep, both those would work too.
Okay, and then you said you could do some easy math. Tell me about that.
So 10 and 10 are friendly numbers because they have the zeros at the end and so I just did 10 and 10 is 20, or I could have done, 10 times 2 is 20.
Mhm.
Yeah. And the same with the other side. I did 8 and 8 is 16. Or, that would work too. 8 times 2 is 16. And then I added them and got 36.
Oops. Just like that. Give me
Yeah,
me
like-
too, if that's how you also shared or thought about this idea. See, Danielle, Sharon also thought of it that way.
Mhm.
Anybody think of this differently?
I can share.
Thank you, Katie.
You said it was 10 by 10. So to me, that's like looking at any given side is 10. So I did 10 4 times is 40, but I can't count the corners twice. So there's 4 corners. So 40 minus 4 is 36.
Ah. So Katie, you used what you knew about a square
Mm-hmm.
being 10 by 10, and you said that each of my sides is going to have 10. And you said that's 10 times 4.
Mm-hmm.
But Katie said she got to an answer of 36. So there's another 4 there that Katie's talking about. Can someone tell us how Katie might have, like, why she's going to get rid of 4?
For the 4 corners?
Because you can't count them twice.
Carlos, yeah, we can't count those 4 squares twice. Thank you for thinking about that. Is that what you're thinking, Katie?
That's exactly what I was thinking.
Yeah, so this square right here was counted twice if we have a 10 on each side. And so we need to subtract those 4, oops, to get to our 36 here. How many of you thought of it Katie's way? Give me a me too. Let's come after one more strategy from the group.
I can go. I initially thought of it Katie's way, but then I wanted to double check my thinking. So similarly, I thought about it as I can't use the corner squares twice. So instead of looking at each of them as a row of 10, I looked at them as a row of 9 because I removed one of the corners knowing it was going to be part of the next row. So then it became 9 times 4, which was 36.
So if you think about just the top row, Jennifer, what 9 were you thinking about?
I started with the very first one and went across 9.
Okay, so
Yeah.
you said this is 9.
Yes.
And then what did you do next?
I started on that next corner, went down 9.
And this is another 9.
Correct. And then I went left 9. And then up 9.
Oh, I should have stopped here, shouldn't I? And then this would be here. Okay, so then how did you get to your answer from there?
9 times 4 is 36.
Thank you, Jennifer. If we look at Terry and Katie and Jennifer's strategies, what do you notice that's similar or different about the strategies? Maybe which two are most alike?
So I think mine and Katie's are most alike because we started with the idea of 10 in mind and then decided that we needed to adjust for the corner squares.
All these like things that pop up.
Yeah, so you're adjusting for the, Terry, you adjusted for the 4 corners by subtracting 2 on the
Right.
sides, where
Right.
Katie subtracted 4 altogether.
Yep.
Okay,
she
that's
found
one
them.
commonality between Terry and Katie. Any others notice similarities?
I think everybody used their knowledge of squares to solve this problem.
Say more about that, Kelly.
That they used the same, like that they knew that the amount of squares on each side were the same because they know that's what squares are.
Yeah, knowing that by definition, a square has equal numbers of equal lengths of sides was important in this problem. All right, thank you for sharing your thinking. My wonder here for you is what if we had a square that it was a different size? What if we, let's say, had a 4 by 4 square, or the square on the screen actually has 15 by 15? We had 3 different strategies that were on the screen. One was take the number on the top and the number on the bottom, and then subtract 2 from the sides. One was to multiply the number on the top by 4 and then subtract the corners. And then the other was to take the number on the top and subtract 1 and then multiply that by 4. Could we use one of those strategies on a different size square, like a 15 by 15 or a 4 by 4 or a 100 by 100 square and figure that out? We
We
don't
could
have to
use-
do that in this moment.
Mm.
However, that's a huge connection to algebra. Katie or Terry, were you going to say something?
It was me. I was just gonna say you could use any of the strategies for all of those squares. All of them would work no matter what size it was, so.
And that right there, friends, is algebra. Taking a
Mhm.
concrete idea and moving it into an abstract thinking.
Mhm.
So as we worked, we were thinking about some mathematics that we engaged in. I want you to think about what's standing out to you and what connections might we be able to make to the work we're trying to do with teachers this year. On the right side of the screen, we're working really hard with educators to open space to follow children's thinking. And we're thinking about that in the ways that are across the bottom, by noticing and eliciting, by engaging children's and others' reasoning, to recording children's thinking, and then also building on children's thinking. Where today did we see evidence of any of those big ideas, or what connections are you making? Let's collect 2 ideas before we continue moving on.
Can we say out loud or?
Yeah, Carlos, thanks for unmuting.
Okay, no problem. I think the one thing that I'm gathering from here, which is very crucial, and Soretta Hammond speaks to that volume, and that is the whole perspective that, you know, the best gift a teacher could get is to be able to get into the student's head and how they're processing and thinking. And in our district, we're working with Shannon McCarthy with SIS, and what I'm seeing her working with our elementary teachers in mathematics is the perspective of role playing and, you know, and teachers actually using math talk and other kind of things. But the beauty, though, through math talk, when the student develop a relationship, it's all about that relationship you develop with the learner. I think that the biggest thing for me, what I'm looking at, is the whole perspective that the student gives you that invite to get up there, like the adults were using it like that. I see that with our kids, and the beauty there is the kids are giving you permission to do for me because of trust. For you to get into their heads, which is what, as an instructional coach or a principal, you want to get into the adult's head to be able to support, right? But I just think that to me, today's demonstration with all three, the one that I had the hardest time because and I'm a visual person, you know, but the one that with the 999, I literally had to draw it. I mean, just to see it because I was not seeing it. And then I said, oh, this makes a whole lot of sense. But the perspective is what I like with these kind of situation is also multiple perspectives of getting to the answers and how our thoughts and our work mind works. And this works well in our district because we have such many bilingual children come from different countries who teach math very differently. So it works out really well. So thank you.
Yeah, Carlos, you're naming some really important ideas, and even connecting to adult learning as well. A big idea, though, is we need to create some norms in our classrooms where, as educators, we're thinking about children's thinking. How kids think about their ideas are really important. And lifting those ideas, in Allison's book, Learning Together, she names it as being, and with her friends, being a student of our students. So really being interested and curious about the ways that educators are thinking about, or children are thinking about ideas. But also, Carlos, you're naming that it's really important for us to think about how teachers are thinking about ideas. So thanks for making that connection. Let's take one more.
I was just thinking that I think too often the higher up we go, you know, upper L or high school freshman algebra, I think there's an understanding that you don't need models anymore or you don't need to draw something. And I think just showing them that it's okay to sketch something out, you know, try something different. Everything doesn't have to be abstract because this problem, without seeing it, for many would be very difficult, for many adults as well. So I think just getting over that stigma of, you know, we don't need to do that anymore now that we're in 7th grade or 8th grade or 9th grade.
Yeah, Chris, you're naming that we started with an image here, and we can start with images in pre-K and we can move through high school mathematics, beginning with some images. And those images can teach us a lot about the mathematics by making connections to that visual idea. Thanks so much. All right, we're going to jump in and invite Allison to share with us some ideas around coherent systems. Thanks, Allison. I assume you're going to want to share your screen, so I'll go ahead and stop mine.
That would be great, Trish. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I'm so happy to be here with you. As Trish said, I'm in Colorado today, so it's bright and early and beautiful out, but I'm so happy to be with my Michigan friends. Here's this core idea that we keep coming back to. If we want kids learning to really be different, we have to really think about how our learning for educators, and that means everyone, needs to be different also. We can't expect something to be different with kids if we're just continuing to do the exact same thing we've always done as grown-ups. So that's our grounding idea also, or always, and we're gonna dig into that in maybe new way today. So these slides should look familiar. We thought about this 2 months ago, and at many of the institutes and other spaces together, we've also thought about this. And often I ask you to think about what was expected from you as a math learner. And then I show these ideas from research, which usually resonate with people, that this was your experience as a math learner in some way. Some of us were lucky to not experience this, but research from across the country for decades has shown these are kind of the core assumptions about mathematics learners and learning that that really shape what our classrooms are like. Here's what I'd like you to think about today. What if we change this to teachers as learners? What would you need to revise about any of these ideas in purple? So for instance, the question you might ask yourself is, I see this idea that mathematics learners don't have valuable ideas. Do we often think about teachers in that way too? So I'd invite you in the chat, either if you think one of these ideas without changing it at all is also true about how we often think about teachers, just write the same idea. Or if you need to make a tiny shift, write your revised idea. What are the ideas alive in our systems about teachers as learners is what I would love to see in the chat. So I see Katie jumping in, copy what the curriculum shows. Or sometimes copy whatever that PD provider showed. Teachers are also good or bad at math. I might also add, we tend to end up classifying teachers as good or bad at teaching. More generally, which connects to what Jolene's saying, they have deficits that need to be fixed immediately, right? How often do our conversations end up being, this is the thing that teacher is doing wrong, and here's how we're gonna plug that gap and fix it immediately. And if there's anything that's any ahas you're having, just playing with this activity here, definitely unmute or put it in the chat. What's this bringing up for you or making you realize? That's interesting, Danielle. They're an expert in only one area. Carrie, so interesting. We can fairly assess a teacher in one evaluation visit, just like we can fairly assess a kid on one day on a standardized test, right? This expectation that we get better alone. Right. That's really interesting, Lori. Math teachers aren't creative. They just should follow things. We do that with kids too, right? We do that with kids and teachers. You don't have any good ideas on your own. I'm going to just tell you what to do in the most specific way possible. So let's add a different layer to it. The other question we've been thinking about is, what are the assumptions about what teachers should do in a classroom that are often alive in our systems? This is what it means often in our systems and historically in our systems to be a math teacher. So now I'm going to give you a little bit of a hard question. Similar to the last slide. How would we revise these to be about what our work is as math leaders? Again, what are the assumptions alive in our system about what math leaders should do? And you can put it in the chat, or if you want to say something out loud, definitely feel free to unmute. I see this idea of should not make mistakes. You need to know everything. You need to deliver information. Think about even the printout worksheets one, right? How often do we find that our people in support roles for teachers, like instructional coaches, are spending a lot of time printing out materials or helping teachers get materials ready. And how often, in terms of supervising independent work, do we expect leaders to just work with one teacher at a time rather than groups of teachers? Yes, Rusty, identify teachers as good or bad. So what I hope you see, well, there's two ways to see this. One is, oh, we have so much to try to disrupt and change. A different way to think about it, though, is we're actually trying to disrupt some of the same things at all levels of our system. We're not trying to do something with kids over here and teachers over here and leaders over here. We're actually trying to think about everyone across the system as the same kind of learner and disrupt some ways of thinking about all of these people across our system that have not served people for a very long time. Thank you, Trish, for summarizing my attempt to summarize. So here's a way to think about some of the shifts we're trying to make as leaders. This is not exhaustive. This is just a way to start naming, what are we trying to shift about what it means to learn as educators and the role of leaders in doing that. Again, this is a simplified version of the really, really, really hard work we're trying to do together. I wonder if in the chat you can say something about what feels really hard about this. Like, what of these shifts feels the most uncomfortable to you, or the most new to you, or the most hard to imagine? You can also unmute. Let's just put into the space what feels hard about some of these shifts we're trying to make in terms of how we support our educators as learners. Kelly, what you wrote is so powerful. It's hard to be the facilitator when everyone wants you to be the expert. Our systems expect us to show up in certain ways. It's hard for us to just magically show up differently one day and expect that to work, right? Yeah, our systems aren't set up for actual learning. Interesting. Rusty, can you speak into what you said? I think that's an interesting connection you're making. Tell you.
Yeah, happy to give it a shot. The connection I was making, as you said on a previous slide or two, was that what we're striving for kids also is really what we're striving for adults. So like that hit me pretty hard. And so then I tried to connect one of these statements with what we're striving for kids and how that also is similar to adults. So the comment I made in chat is, when I put myself back in the classroom, when I was short on time, it was much quicker to say, here's what we need to know, here's how to do it, here's like, try this, do these steps. Because time is real for all teachers in the classroom. And I think that is probably a similar parallel for all of us as leaders. As we work with and support the people, we don't have a lot of time with them often. And so to get through the things we need to get through, it's probably much easier and faster to just tell instead of engage in some activities or instructional moves that might foster deep understanding.
Yeah, and our systems expect quick results, right?
Yes, very quick.
Okay, so this is our very ambitious work we're trying to do together. Hopefully you see in these naming of these shifts, different threads of our work from, depending how long you've been involved in this early math work, from over the years and just in the last few months. Hopefully you see that we're trying to work on across all 5 of these in different ways across our different experiences together. Today, what we're going to zoom in on is this idea about collaboratively designing coherent learning systems. So that's the space we're going to be in today. And I want to name that this is the blue hexagon in our theory of change and our vision for what this early math work is setting out to do and what we're hoping to build for educators and kids across the state, actually cross content, right? This isn't specific to math. This is what's a system that would really support all of our learners. So what I want to start with is that coherence is craft. We're going to dig into what that means. And it's actually everyone's job all the time. It can't be one person in the system's job to figure out how everything's going to feel coherent for everybody. It actually has to be all of our job at all layers of the system in a really collaborative way. And what we're going to dig into is why that is and how we can start thinking about doing that. So a really simple way to talk about what it means to craft coherence is we have to kind of toggle between 2 things. One is we have to constantly be seeing our current system through the lens of coherence or incoherence. And then we have to enact strategies, and we actually have to go back and forth between those 2 because our systems are constantly evolving. So what our system looks like today is going to be different than what it looks like in a week or a month or next year. We have to constantly be attending to what's happening for our people, whether it's at a school level or a district level or an ISD level or at a state level. And I want to name that some of the work we've done the last couple of times where we were doing post-its around what is everything in our system. That is a crucial step to seeing our systems through the lens of coherence. So we're not going to dig into those post-its really today, but I will say that that activity of just what are all the things in our system right now, is dump it all out, is actually a crucial step to start thinking about where to craft coherence, because if we don't see the full mess of our systems, we can't start figuring out where to make it feel more coherent for people. So if you've worked on coherence with me before, you might have seen a different definition. This has been evolving because it turns out that we don't really have a definition I'm satisfied with in existing research. A lot of the existing research puts it out as coherence is this like perfect endpoint you could reach where everything is magically fits together. And I think we all know that's just not possible in our messy systems where we don't have control over everything. This definition tries to capture a few big ideas, so I'm going to walk through some of them. So one thing is that coherence is experienced, not planned for. We can plan all we want, but if our people, whether that be teachers or the other leaders in our system, or if we're thinking about at the classroom level, our kids, if they're not experiencing it as coherent, then we have not crafted coherence. Another idea that is, or a set of ideas that I think is really useful, is that coherence is both about how we're structuring things and the ideas in our system. So structural and conceptual. So that means, do things fit together in time and space is the structural piece. Conceptual is, do the underlying ideas fit together? So let's think about what that might sound like for someone. So if we imagine a teacher, right? So they might say, I'm expected to do this and this and this, and there is not physically enough time to do so, or I'm not even given the resources to do so. That is a structural incoherence, right? I'm expected to do all these things, and the structure of my system does not actually allow me to do all of those things. Or I'm told our district or school priority is blank, but whatever other role or tool expects me to do blank. That we could see maybe some structural incoherence or some conceptual incoherence, probably both mixed together, right? or sometimes it's across these different spaces I'm in or these tools I'm given, I actually am getting really different ideas about what it means to whatever. So that could mean teach kids, assess kids, respond to student behavior, engage with families, look at data, engage with student ideas. What does a good classroom look like? Sometimes what happens is across all of the things we're engaging teachers in, we're actually giving them really different ideas. We also had an example in the chat, right, of I'm supposed to be a facilitator, or I'm trying to be a facilitator. I'm doing all this learning about trying to be a facilitator, but my system is sending this message that I need to be an expert in other spaces, right? That's another example of an incoherence I heard in the chat that some of you are experiencing. So let's just dump some in the chat. What are some disconnects or contradictions that teachers might be experiencing in our system, or leaders? So you might think about yourself here, or other leaders that you work with. And you can use one of these sentence stems or whatever other idea comes to mind. What are ways in which our systems right now might not feel like they fit together, either in terms of time and space, or in terms of the ideas that are alive in the system? Too many competing initiatives. I'm supposed to do this and this and this and this, and I can't even have time to focus on figuring out what one of them is. Yep. So this incoherence between, which is connecting a little bit to what Rashi was saying, right? We're trying to go deep, but we have so much we're supposed to get to. I think, Stacy, what you're raising is really crucial. We forget sometimes in our systems how elementary teachers are teaching all the different content areas and experiencing different instructional materials and different kinds of professional learning across all of them. And they have to try to figure out how to make sense of them all together. And I see Danielle connecting. Oh, this is how we are siloed as leaders. So then teachers end up feeling like their experience is coming to them in silos. This is important too. This coach told me to do that. Principal told me to do that. What am I supposed to do here? Right. I'm supposed to refine and reflect on my practice, but I have no time to do that. So we could keep going. Our systems are pretty incoherent in a lot of ways, and some of that is really out of our control. I'll name that. There's lots of things coming in that we don't have control over. And all of us only have certain spaces or interactions that we do get to make decisions about. What we're going to think about, though, is how can we still craft coherence for people given that messiness? What does that mean to show up as leaders in that messy space? So often when we hear the word coherence in educational spaces, what people are actually saying is alignment. What I want to push on here today is coherence is not just alignment. Alignment is great. But alignment ends up being, here's the purpose and nature of the work, this pink dot, if you go with me here. And we're going to align all of these things in our system, these squares and triangles. We're going to align them. Look, they're all aligned. They have the same words, or we've thought about how they fit together. But that's in one point in time. And we all know what happens after that is our systems evolve and get messy, and new things come in and new things come and other things come out and new people arrive. And just because we aligned all these things in the moment does not mean it's creating coherence across the system. So instead, this idea that I really like from this researcher at University of Washington, Meredith Honig, she talks about coherence as a craft or a muddling through. And I really like this idea of craft and this muddling idea as pushing back against this idea that coherence has this kind of recipe for creating it. Some people even there's some people that use the word weaving, and I actually have realized I don't like that either, because that suggests that there's some really organized way of putting everything together that will look really neat and perfect at the end. And that's not the reality of our messy educational systems either, right? So here's a different way of thinking about it. So if we imagine this pink line is the purpose and nature of the work, and we'll talk about what that can look like, but it could be a lot of different things, right? It could be, what is our role as teachers? What is our goal for kids? What is our goal as a school staff? What is our goal as an ISD? That's continuing over time. So notice before it was just a dot, now it's that we need to stretch this purpose and nature of the work across time. And around that, we have our messy system, right? All these different things, these could be events, tools, routines, roles, different interactions. There's some things in our control, some things not in our control. And what we have to do as leaders is figure out, how do we bring these different parts of our system into connect to our shared purpose and our shared vision? So sometimes that means connecting just individual parts of our system. Sometimes it might mean connecting 3 parts of our system so that we can connect to the shared purpose. Sometimes it means connecting more than that. Sometimes we realize, oh, that did not work to connect it that way. That did not make things fit together. I actually need to figure out a different way to connect everything together, because before I left out these other things. So I need to go around and connect these other things to make that all make sense together. And then, of course, we get new things in our system that we didn't anticipate, that often we don't have control over, right? The state legislature says, now you need to buy a new literacy curriculum, for instance. You have to, or now we have this new law, or now the school board is saying, now you have to change this, right? We have lots of things that come into our system that we don't have control over, that we have to make sense of and help our people in our systems make sense of. So sometimes we can connect them through to things we already have in our system to help people make sense of them. And sometimes we have to think of other ways to bring a bunch of stuff together, because new people are coming into our system and they don't understand how any of it fits together. Then sometimes we're realizing, actually, like, this little purple circle actually needs to be a much bigger purple circle, right? Actually, I need to change what that thing looks like so that it can be connected. And another crucial thing is sometimes we just have to take things out. So the big point is here, this is really messy and there's no magic recipe for crafting coherence in your system. It's figuring out how all the pieces fit together and how you can keep helping them fit together as it continually evolves, and as new people come in and out and new things come into your system and things leave your system and things change. We have to be constantly attending to, how are people making sense of all of this together, and how do I want them to make sense of it all together, and how can I support them to do that? I want to just name that this is a key way where we work towards sustainability here. The only way we can sustain things is by being able to adapt them as our systems evolve. So here's big buckets of how we can think about what that means our work is. For things we can control, we can try to think about, how do we fit them together in a way that really makes sense for people? How can we make sure there's similar ideas about kids or teaching across these different spaces and across these different tools? How can I help people make sense of that PD in relation to our feedback conversation, in relation to this book we're reading, in relation to the curriculum, right? How can I help teachers make sense across those? we also have to pay attention to the things we can't control also. So for that, we have to be looking for those potential incoherences, and then we have to figure out how are we going to help our people make sense of the differences. What we know about humans is we all want our experience to feel coherent, right? So we try to figure out how to make it coherent. That doesn't always go in the direction that we would hope it would, right? So if we notice incoherences in our system, it's actually our job to think about how am I going to help people make sense of that? And sometimes it might be, I know that the district is asking us to do X, or the state is asking us to do X, or this federal policy is asking us to do X. I know that's different than what we've been talking about when we talk about this initiative we're working on. Here's how we're going to make sense of that. Is actually an important conversation to have with people so that they understand, oh, we are still focused on this shared purpose. I shouldn't go over in this direction, or here's how this piece fits into our shared purpose. Then across all the things, we have to collaborate really closely with system actors to make sure we're understanding how they're experiencing all of the things coming at them. So in the early math world, there's a lot of things we could put here in terms of shared purpose, but one of the things we were naming earlier and what we kind of frame as our North Star in the lower right corner of that theory of action is, can we design systems where students, teachers, and leaders are messy, collaborative problem solvers? Can we build that system where that's the shared purpose and nature of our work? So it's interesting to think about then, if we want that to be true for everyone in a school building or everyone in a district or ISD or at the state level, how are we thinking about designing for coherence and crafting coherence across all the different pieces in our system? I'll name that something as we design at the state level of the system. We're thinking about all the time, how can we help things fit together in a way that makes sense for everyone? So what I'm hoping you're seeing is this idea that we have to have everyone in our system really paying attention for coherence all the time in order to craft it. It cannot come down to just the principal or just the superintendent or just the math coach or the EMS. It cannot come down to any one person. We actually have to all be attending to what's our shared purpose and how are we going to keep bringing everyone towards it. So what we want to give you a time to do right now in your team workspaces is think a little bit about what are the incoherences in your system right now? And what might we experiment with? What might we try to make it just a little bit more coherent? And I'm going to name, we didn't really start digging into strategies yet. That will come. But really sitting first with what are the incoherences in our systems right now that we want to think about more together is a really crucial starting space to then move forward in terms of designing strategies. So I wonder, Trish, could you give people instructions for how to get into their spaces?
I would be happy to.
Thank you.
So I just shared in chat a link to the agenda. If you all would click on that, and it'll take you to a page that looks like this. The November tab should be clicked up there. And then you're going to want to find your ISD in this list and also note the number that's next to your ISD. So for example, if I was from Macomb, I would be thinking I'm 33. I'm going to click on Macomb. That's going to be my workspace. And it should look familiar because we were here in September and October for a quick bit. Once I get there, I'm going to head over to slide 3 for most of you. Some of you have more than 3 slides. So the last slide is going to be where we're going to be doing our working. And we're just going to click and be able to type. So again, from this page, Jess is going to open up some breakout rooms so that you can work with others that are from your ISD. Feel free to duplicate pages as needed if you have multiple districts with you. and feel the need to duplicate. And you're going to head to the breakout room with a number that is next to your ISD. What did I miss there? Jess gives the okay. All right, we're gonna open up some breakout rooms. And about how much time will we have? What's feeling good, Allison? I'm gonna say it's gonna be about 10 minutes. I'm gonna throw that out there.
Sorry, I realized I was muted. That sounds great. Thank you, Trish.
Done. Okay. If you need help getting to a breakout room, just type the name of your ISD or the number if you either or, and we will put you there if you don't see the option to go into a breakout.
All right. Do we have everyone back? I think we have everyone back. Hopefully that time to just process in your teams was useful. What a few of us were doing was going through and looking across all of yours. It's not everything, but here's some that we grabbed from your different workspaces to just bring to the common space. So I'll give you a second to look at these. These are some of the incoherences we're naming that exist in our systems. The behavior one I thought was a really good example to call out because it's a way that teachers can experience or leaders can experience incoherence in how they're trying to make sense of their job, right? I'm getting all this PD on how I'm supposed to do this magical math instruction, and I'm really struggling with behavior, right? That is a incoherence that teachers can experience as they're trying to make sense of this shared what their job is, right? And how to make sense of their time and their practice. We have about 8 minutes here to just process together. So I would love in the chat, or please unmute, and what question came up for you? What are you puzzling over? What's feeling really hard about this? Anything that's on your mind is fair game in this last little time we have together.
Allison, this is Carlos. How you doing?
Carlos.
I'm up at Ypsilanti Community Schools. I guess when I look at all of this, and my role is assistant superintendent, so I drive curriculum, instruction, whatever. And one of the things that is important to me is people closer to the problem have the answer. Do you understand? And I really believe people support what they help create. So I use every opportunity as I can to bring teachers and instructional coaches. I have amazing instructional coaches. They have been training all kinds of coaching experiences. They're now working with Jim Knight, who's having his organization work with us. We work with Carolyn McCander. We've done every cognitive coaching, every coaching you can find, Aguilar, all of it. The perspective at the end of the day, it's a great workforce, but sometimes it's mindsets that get in the way. And I think we do diligence, like for example, even with behavior and all the things that I see here, are we really listening to the adults that we're leading? Do you understand? And are we really getting in their heads? And are we trying to be so quick to want to coach the person up without really understanding the intricacy, what the person is really trying to communicate? And sometimes the adult does not have the words to describe because they're so frustrated.
Yep.
You follow me? So it's how do you navigate all that stuff, right? I
Yeah.
just think it's being empathetic and listening is so important. Teacher clarity is important to me, and student driving their learning. Those are the two pieces that I'm very unapologetic as a leader, because the more that we could, if the kids have learning intention, the student is growing and developing goal setting, whatever, I'm more eager in helping the adult learner, which is the scholar. Okay. And in the development of adults is I put so much money in there and support. Time is always against you, if I may, with whatever you're doing. Well, we're not talking about equity here, but the reality is if you have you work in a district that is a suburban district with urban characteristics, and you're trying to ignore equity, you're out of your mind. You follow me? Because it's going to come to your face if you like it or not. And so in building relationship with students, you're navigating a lot. And
Yep.
this profession has gotten to be a lot. And I just think overall is staying positive but once you have that teacher, let that person speak about what's in their mind.
Yep.
You understand? And I think that's to me, I'm gonna be honest from the bottom of my heart. I love your book. This book was so long overdue. It's like the Bible now for school improvement for me, for our district. And it's just the conversation are richer and honest. I think this is your book, I would say to you, is the elephant in the room. So I appreciate you. Thank you.
Appreciate that, Carlos. And part of what I heard you saying is how do we hear from our people about how their experience, like you just named so many resources you've brought to your people, amazing resources, right? How do we stop and say, how are you experiencing all of that? So one activity, I would just say, like, if you want something to try, get a couple teachers, give them a stack of Post-its, say, what are all the things you feel like you're expected to do or receive or have to do or sitting on your desk, or all the PDs you're supposed to be in and all the coaching cycles you have. Like, just dump all the things you feel like are on your plate right now. And then there's some interesting sorting you can do of what feels like it fits together for you, what feels like it's totally incoherent and you have no idea how to put them together, what felt really useful, what did not feel really useful. Getting perspectives from folks on how they're experiencing their system is actually the crucial first step if we're going to start making it feel more coherent, right? Because sometimes with good intentions, we just keep adding more without stopping and saying, and that's what we're trying to capture in the book, how people experience the system is crucial. And actually sometimes less is a lot more for people. And that in what we did in that work in that book, we weren't bringing a bunch of new people or resources in. We were just trying to build a system that was coherent and in terms of how people were experiencing their learning. Other thoughts?
Matthew Bice, I'm the elementary principal at Birchview up in Ishpeming in the UP. And as we've been talking, I'm not necessarily just thinking about the incoherences that we were talking about. I'm kind of like thinking about this whole meeting, that some of the conversations that have gone on. But one of the points that came up earlier was the difference of it's something that we have to do, like it's just a thing we have to check off or accomplish, versus digging into like the what and the why and the how and those rich conversations.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, it feels like keeping it human, and that it kind of echoes what you guys were all just talking about. There's a lot of noise in the world of education of what we should be doing, and we have to get X number of minutes for this and X number of minutes for that. And if we're not doing that, it feels like we're not meeting our expectations. And if we're not doing that, then we're failing our kids. And it's like,
Yep.
I like to use I call it my zoom out method, where I zoom, if I'm faced with a problem or faced with something, I zoom out until it's put in perspective. You know, sometimes you can zoom out and be like, all right, at the building level, is this the biggest thing that we've got going on right now? Maybe, but probably not.
Yep.
If it is, you know, how about the city? You know, how about the state? And then it's like, okay, let me put it in perspective. And at the end of the day, like we're dealing with like 7-year-olds, 6-year-olds. Let's figure out what's going on with you as a 6 and 7-year-old. What's going on with you as an educator? Like, what are some of the things that you're dealing with in your personal life and what, you know, just keep it human.
Yep.
And I think that it's easy to get caught up in the noise of education, and all of those things. But, you know, if you fall short on your minutes for a particular subject for 1 week, like, okay, but let's like, and I liked the idea of what you said about prioritizing the list of all the things that they're expected to accomplish, and then looking at, okay, what's gonna, you know, what's our bang for our buck here? Our, you know, these number corner conversations are deep, rich conversations. These are things that, you know, we can spend 20 minutes on and get really good results, and you know, that's going to be beneficial in the future, as opposed to, you know, spending 20 minutes on 2 worksheets and going, you know. So I don't know. I'm rambling, and I'm really good at rambling, and I apologize, but I totally see the value in this work, and I see it working in our classrooms. And so,
Well, and you named so many good examples there of how being really clear about what your shared purpose is helps you zoom out in a useful way, right? Notice you're going to make really different decisions. If your shared purpose is we're going to improve test scores,
right,
you're going to make really different decisions than if your shared purpose is some version of what's on the screen here or something, right? You just said, what if we're just human about 6 and 7-year-olds? If that's your shared purpose, if that's your filter for deciding what are we going to decide to spend time on, and you're constantly in all your interactions with your teachers showing like, yeah, I know that test is coming, but we're really focused on these rich number talks where our kids get to be problem solvers. And we can trust that we'll see that in the tests eventually, but we're going to really focus here. That's an amazing example of how you craft coherence for people, because they're experiencing all the mess, and our job as leaders can be, yes, it's messy. Yes, there's all these headlines about all sorts of things. Here's our focus. Here's our focus, right?
Yeah.
Really beautiful. We are going to keep thinking about, what does this work mean? How do we see our messy systems and craft coherence from there? I would say, if you want to play around with this more, doing some of that post-it sorting yourself too, of what could we stop doing? What do we have to keep doing? Or what really feels like it fits with our shared purpose, and what is noise? That can be really useful ways to do what you're saying of zooming out to see the reality of our systems right now. Rusty, you want me to show your slides for you? Oh, I did just want to name what we worked on today is in the design cards about coherence. And there's even some activities on this, routines and ways to think about your role, if you want to dig a little deeper into continuing to think about our role in terms of coherence. Okay.
Thanks, Allison, for resurfacing the design cards. I think what we're doing here is learning about some ideas each month. We provide some activities to kind of scratch the surface, but as you all are naming, there's so much work we can do that would be really productive with our people, to Carlos's point, around these ideas. So know that there's a lot of other activities and resources that can be utilized to continue to dive deeper. Thanks, Trish, for posting the design cards. We have 1 minute, so I'm going to make this quick and go not from the slides. We have leadership team content that will also follow up in the email that we use to share the recording. Learning labs this month, our people are going to be facilitating. Many of you on the call have already started that work, and the feedback is super positive. So let's continue that work of learning with children, with adults, in classrooms. That's the most powerful place where we can do the learning, which Allison named earlier. The other thing that will be in the follow-up email is an opportunity for all of us with our local teams to dive into at a deeper level this work. Over the last 2 years, we have hosted a leader series, which its purpose is for local and ISD teams to come together to think really hard about their professional learning system for adults for the upcoming school year. We are launching that again. I'll share the flyer and the registration. If you're interested in this content, it's a space for your team to have support in doing that work at a much deeper level from November 20, which is the facilitator launch. That's coming soon. And then we do the work through the spring and have a climax of our series with 2 face-to-face days in the spring. All that information will be in the email. We'd love for you to consider it and know that myself, a member of the literacy team, and Allison are leading that charge. And we'd love to have, like we have the last couple of years, a lot of friends across the state join us in that deep work. So look for that in the email. We appreciate all of you. It's 1 minute past. Go about your day, change the world. Have a great rest of the week and weekend, and we'll talk soon.